Well, folks, we have another Disney Plus show on our hands, and in this case, it's Ironheart. Wait a minute, didn't this come out like 2 years ago? Well, as it turns out, Ironheart was originally supposed to release back in 2023, but kept on getting delayed for various reasons. But Marvel has finally decided to release it. Although, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't even know this was coming out, because Marvel didn't do a lot to advertise it. I kept on waiting for a trailer to release because it was set to release in June, but we got nothing for a while. I actually thought it was going to get delayed again. But finally, about a month and a half before the release of the show, we finally got the first trailer. Oh, and apparently the show is premiering with its first 3 episodes. Not only that, but the very next week we get to see the next 3 episodes. Wow, 6 episodes in 1 week? This must be a big show. What's that? It's only 6 episodes long? Yeah, this is the first time they've dumped a 6-episode show in just 1 week. It just goes to show how little confidence Marvel had in Ironheart. At this point, I even wonder why they even bothered splitting the episodes up. You might as well just release all 6 episodes at the same time. Now, based on the comments, it seems like opinions on this show are very mixed. Some people hate it, some people think it's okay, and some people really like it. Now, a lot of the people who are saying they don't like it clearly haven't even watched it, along with the people who are review bombing it before it even came out. What sense does that make? Honestly, this is further proof that a lot of MCU fans don't seem to want to give things a chance. This is a big reason why the new Avengers didn't do well financially. A lot of people didn't even give it a chance because they just assumed it would be bad. Well, it may seem like a foreign concept to some people, but I like to give things a chance, even if I think it looks bad or if I'm not excited for it. And in the case of Ironheart, I wasn't very excited. But now it's time for me, Aaron still hasn't finished Battle of the Mascots Part 2, Turner, to give my thoughts on Marvel's latest Disney Plus show. So this show takes place after the events of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and follows Riri Williams returning to her home in Chicago. She ends up getting kicked out of MIT for being too reckless and selling completed assignments to students. We also learn that her stepdad and best friend were killed in a drive-by shooting. Now I'll get into my first point, which is a point that I'm kinda conflicted with, and that is the character of Riri Williams. I'll talk about my problems with this character first. She's not very interesting. What do we really know about her? We know that her stepdad and best friend were killed. We know that she's a genius inventor and, in her own words, wants to make something iconic. Yeah, that's pretty much it. She doesn't really have much of a personality. Another reason for this is due to Dominic Thorne's performance. Now hold on, before you go nuts in the comments, let me explain. When I watched the first 3 episodes, I didn't think Dominic Thorne's performance was that great. There were several scenes where I thought she could have given a better reaction, such as that scene where the Hood traps her in the elevator, and especially her reaction to seeing a cop get killed in front of her. She doesn't really give much of an emotional response in these scenes. I guess now would be a good time to talk about the AI stuff. Through subconscious thoughts, she accidentally makes her suit's AI be her dead best friend Natalie. Now on paper, this is actually not a bad idea. My issue is the way it's executed. First of all, once again, Riri doesn't seem all that shaken up just casually talking to her dead best friend. They don't even really take it that seriously until Natalie's brother sees the AI, which I do think is a very well-acted scene, by the way. But I just feel like they could have done a better job with the Natalie AI. I think it would have been better if Riri created the Natalie AI on purpose rather than on accident. Not only would it have been a creative way to show their past friendship with one another, but it would have been a more tragic way of showing someone dealing with grief and using their dead best friend as AI in order to cope. Now, I know that Riri does eventually warm up to the AI throughout the show, but I feel as if this idea would have been more effective. But back to what I was saying about Dominic Thorne's performance. The following examples I just mentioned are all from the first 3 episodes. However, I do feel that in the last 3 episodes, she does have some emotional moments where her performance does shine. So please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I don't think Dominic Thorne does a bad job in this show. There's just certain moments, mostly in the first 3 episodes, where she could have given a better reaction. However, now I'll talk about something I do like about Riri in this show. You see, a lot of people who are hating on this show seem to be upset because they feel like Riri is replacing Tony Stark. Based on comments, they seem to be acting as if Riri Williams is some bullshit character that the MCU made up, even though Riri existed in the comics long before she made her appearance in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now, of course, some of these people are just being racist and can't accept a black woman being Iron Man, such is the case for some of those people that review-bombed the show before it came out. But regarding the whole Tony Stark replacement issue, this show doesn't actually do that. It's my understanding that Riri in the comics does have a lot to do with Tony Stark and is more of a successor to Iron Man. However, the show doesn't really have anything to do with Tony Stark if you really think about it. Yes, she does mention in the show that it was her stepdad who was a fan of Tony Stark, but Riri herself isn't inspired by Tony Stark. The only reason she builds these armored suits is because she's a genius and is one of the few who's actually able to build one. And as we find out, it's the only thing she can think of to build in order to protect her family after failing to protect Natalie and her stepdad. So yeah, it has nothing to do with Tony Stark. Now on to another problem that people seem to have. The fact that Riri apparently sucks at being a superhero. She doesn't save anyone and lets people die. And I feel like those people are kind of missing the point of her character. She's not supposed to be a hero in this show. She has selfish intentions. Yeah, she doesn't save anyone in this show. She joins a group of criminals simply for money. She doesn't care about the bad things they do. She even lets one of them die in episode 3. So she's clearly not a hero. She is a morally gray character, and that's one of the reasons why lots of people are liking the show. So while I still don't think Riri is that interesting of a character, I have to give credit where it's due. This is a refreshing take for a main character in a Disney Plus show. It's not just the typical superhero story where they get powers and want to do good with them. So for those of you who are still complaining about the Tony Stark thing, they are not even similar in terms of character. Tony starts as a villain and becomes a hero. Riri doesn't become a hero, nor does she start off as one. She remains morally gray throughout the whole show. The only reason she ends up fighting Parker in the end isn't because he's a bad guy, but simply to protect her family, as Parker was threatening her. Speaking of which, I wasn't a big fan of the villains. First of all, you have young Han Solo playing Ezekiel Stane, the son of Obadiah Stane. Yeah, I didn't even realize till halfway through the show that it was the guy who played Han Solo in that one movie, and as soon as I realized that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. But I wasn't huge on his character, especially when he became a villain, because you have some pretty cartoony moments with him when he's being controlled by Parker, and some of the lines he says are really cliche. Then you have Parker Robbins, or the Hood. His motivations just felt very weak. He just wants power and money, I guess. I do think there was some good horror elements involving Parker in the 3rd episode, but then episode 4 came around, and when he appears in Ezekiel's prison cell, I just thought he looked so goofy with the cloak. It looks like a kid's Halloween costume. I just couldn't take him seriously. Alright, I know you're probably waiting for me to talk about the elephant in the room, or in this case, the devil in the room, but I have a few nitpicks I want to mention first. Now, in regard to the whole combining tech with magic in the finale, while I do think it's pretty cool, I have to say that it's getting kind of ridiculous how many of these finales have the main character getting a new suit. They've done this with so many shows now. WandaVision does this, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier does this, Hawkeye does this, Miss Marvel does this, She-Hulk does this, Echo does this, and now we have Ironheart doing it. It's not something that ruins the show or anything, but it's really getting tired at this point. A small moment that I thought was dumb was when the cop is about to shoot Riri, so she asks Natalie's AI to shut the faceplate for her. Now I guess Natalie starts glitching because she was of course killed by gunfire, but Riri keeps asking her to close the faceplate knowing that it's not working. So my question is, why doesn't she just manually close the faceplate herself? Like, come on, Riri, aren't you supposed to be a genius? Kind of a dumbass move on your part. Oh, I almost forgot. Eric Andre's in this show, playing one of the Hood's gang members. Yeah, they got a pretty funny comedian that a lot of people like, but he's completely wasted. Not only is the humor with his character not funny, but he's killed off early on, and you don't even see it. It happens off screen. This would be like if the MCU casted Conan O'Brien to play a character, but they don't even have him do anything even remotely funny, and then he's killed off screen. And lastly, there's a really funny line said by Natalie's brother when he enters Riri's place. He walks in and says, "Hey, black people." And he himself is, well, black people. Imagine if I walked into a white person's household and said this. Hey, what's up, white people? Yeah, this is me, folks. A white people. Sounds pretty fucking dumb, doesn't it? Look, I realize this is a dumb nitpick, but if this only happened once in the show, I probably wouldn't even mention it. But it happens twice. So I just wanted to clown on that. We can move on to Borat now. Yes, that's right. After years of fan speculation, the devil himself, Mephisto, makes his MCU debut in the finale, and it is not a disappointment. They actually got Borat to play Mephisto. Imagine telling a Marvel fan in 2006 that this guy is going to be playing Mephisto. Now that is fucking hilarious. It's not just a funny casting, though. Sacha Baron Cohen actually does a really good job as the character. I like how he seems welcoming, but at the same time you can tell that there's something off about him. Seeing his demon form in the reflection of the spoon is a really nice touch. I also think it's so fitting to end the show with Riri making a deal with Mephisto to bring Natalie back to life. No matter if you like this show or not, you have to admit how clever it is to take a morally gray character like Riri and start the show with her being kicked out of MIT for selling assignments to students, all the way to ending the show with her making a deal with the devil. That is fantastic.
Say that again?
Hey, whoa, hold on now. We're not at that movie yet. We still have about 3 weeks. So in the end, I think Ironheart is a pretty mixed bag. There's certain aspects where the show really does shine, but it's held back by some pretty goofy and weak villains. It's got some weak acting here and there. The Natalie AI could have been done better, and it's just kind of boring at times, especially in the first half. I honestly struggled with what rating I should give because when the show is at its best, I'd say it's maybe a 7 out of 10. But when it's at its worst, it's a 4 out of 10. So I'm kind of forced to give Ironheart a 5.5 out of 10. I know some of you might think that's a pretty miserable rating, but I'm really trying to be as fair as I possibly can. Honestly, I think Ironheart would have benefited a lot if it was released back in 2023 as originally intended. Sure, it does suffer from some of the cliche Disney Plus mediocrity, but even with all the issues I have, it is unique in many areas, and it would have stood out amongst some of the other shit we were getting at the time. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I'm looking right at you. But as the MCU stands right now in the year 2025, Ironheart doesn't stand out much as a result, and I have a feeling it's going to end up like other Disney Plus shows such as Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, Secret Invasion, and Echo, in that it's just going to be forgotten about over time. Well, that's what I thought of Ironheart. Wait a minute. I just remembered. I'm white. I can't just be talking about this show and criticizing it. What kind of monster am I? Think, Aaron. How do you get out of this? Oh, I've got it. I identify as black.